such. A lot of people too. It all depends on what's on the calendar. A lot of times the calendar is very basic. We're just moving. A bill to be moved has to be on the calendar for 3 session days in a row before it can be voted on. So a lot of times there's nothing really hot and heavy being voted on until, as I said, as we get closer to the budget time. But this is I guess you could call it the bird's eye view of what goes on. Now the Senate has gone paperless, so we used to carry these big green binders with all the bills in them, but now we have laptops, so you can just pull the bills up and look at. And all the laptops are inside. I forgot to show you, are inside the desk. I could have showed you inside my desk. So you might see senators on them. Maybe some playing games, I don't know. Or whatever. But a good question. Scott Adams asked, how does the bill get here? How does it get to the session floor? The first thing is you have an idea for a bill and you write it. And then you put out a co-sponsorship memo to try to get others to join. Now the more that you get onto the bill, and I'll go down front here, the more you can get on the bill as co-sponsorship, the better it is. I'm going to throw 3 numbers at you for a bill to actually get passed. 26, 102, and 1. You need you have 50 senators. You need 26 votes to get it out of the Senate. You have 203 House members. You need 102 House members to vote for it. And of course, you need the governor to sign it. So on any bill that you're trying to move, that's your goal, is 26, 102, and 1. Hopefully more than that, but at least that to get something moved. So the bill gets written, you put your co-sponsorship out. After that, it gets assigned to a committee depending on what the subject matter of the bill. If it's an education bill, it would go to the education committee. It has something to do with state government, something to do with policy. It would end up in state government committee, labor issues, labor and industry, so forth and so forth. They would vote it out, or they would say we're not going to vote the bill out, and the bill could die in committee there. Once it goes through the committee, then it hits the appropriations committee to assign any type of fiscal note that may have to go to it. Once it gets out of appropriations, then it gets on to what is known as the Senate calendar. Once it's on the Senate calendar, it has to be on the Senate calendar for at least 3 days before it's voted on. You get it voted on, you get your 26 votes, it moves over to the House, and the process starts all over again. And if you get 102 members over there and the governor vetoes it, guess what? You have to come back, and then you need a supermajority to get it passed. So again, the key thing is to get 26, 102, and 1 to get it done. I got 13 bills done since I've been in the Senate. And I have to tell you, it's not easy. There's a lot of salesmanship that goes on in trying to move a bill forward and such. So you get people on the bill, you get to talk to them and so forth. So it's quite a process. But this is where anybody, any citizen, anybody who wants to come and watch us, you can sit here and watch this in action or inaction. All depends on what the day is. Some days, though, like I said, you could have some really heated, and some of the debates on the floor get really hot and heavy. They really do, depending on what the topic is and such. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Citizens lobbying. I mean, why? You have a lot of guys engaging. I mean, talking back to their constituency to put pressure on, maybe other people that are in committee or other people that represent the Senate.
Are you talking about citizen lobbying?
Yeah. I mean, how? Because a lot of guys get offended. I mean, I've been in groups where you're talking, people ask the question, why aren't you calling us, and who are the other people that we have to put pressure on, and let us handle that. It was kind of the answer to that question. So,
well, it's very important. I mean, and that's what I refer to as the grassroots stuff and trying to get a bill moved forward. And because, believe it or not, folks, they do pay attention to the emails and letters that they get in. let's say on pension reform. Right now we're getting a ton of what I would call the postcards from the PSEA, the Pennsylvania State Education Association, the union. Don't touch our pensions. And I must have received over 1,000 of them so far. And members will talk about that. So the more pressure you put on from the outside, especially from the districts that they represent, they do pay attention because they like to get reelected. So, and you believe it or not, your elected officials, a lot of them have thin skin, real thin skin. So they do pay attention, believe it or not. Sometimes not to your liking, but they do take notice to it. Yes?
A bill that dies in committee or gets voted down, how long before that can be reintroduced? Is there a time frame, or how does that work?
Well, you could take the bill out, rework it, see if you could, and then reintroduce it in that session period. A session is a 2-year period. A session is a 2-year period, so you could actually get it reintroduced the next year or going forward. The calendar gets pretty jammed up, and this is where I believe term limits should especially be implemented, and that is in term limits of leadership positions, because they can really dictate what a bill does. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry.
How do you know, if you're, with the exception of emails and the letters, how do you know that you're actually representing what the people want?
Well, that's a good question. She asked, how do you, besides the emails and so forth, how do you know if you're legislating what the people want? I try to hold town hall meetings. I put out a thing called Mike's Memo. With a lot of the electronics that are available to you now, with the electronic airway, we're trying to use more and more of that. I don't do the newsletters. You never saw a Mike Folmer newsletter. To do a newsletter in a district the size of a state senate district, which is about 255,000 plus people that you represent in a senate district, it costs approximately about $30-some thousand for one newsletter to be produced. So, and to be in communications, they're putting out at least 4 or 5 or 6 of them at a shot. I just think I have a thing called Mike's Memo. Everything you want to know about what's going on in Harrisburg, but was afraid to ask type of thing. It's very non-political. We just tell you what's going on, what bills are moving, what bills aren't moving, and then you get feedback. But mostly it's going to be based on your presuppositional worldview. I mean, you're elected to represent your district. My main goal in anything that I do, and this is going to sound kind of corny, is that my first thing I look at is it constitutional? I don't want to vote on anything. If it's unconstitutional, then I'm violating the oath. And my number one job is to protect your rights first. That's my number one job. It's not to give you everything that you might think that you want. Remember, a government that's big enough to give you everything that you think that you want is definitely big enough to take away everything that you need. Just remember that. To amplify that point, I was at a town hall meeting in Lebanon. I was invited on the north side of Lebanon, and Lebanon is highly Hispanic now. The city of Lebanon is now a minority city. And I was sitting there, and one of the questions that was brought before the panel, county commissioners were there, Congressman Dent was there, the mayor was there, and so forth. The question was by a young lady, a young Hispanic lady, said that she was concerned about the fact that the welfare lines are getting longer and that they're running out of money. And nobody was jumping up and saying they'll take that question. So I took the question. And the first thing I said to the lady, I said, I understand what you're saying. I said, you're finding out something. You're finding out that a government that's big enough to give you what you think that you need can also take that away. I said, do you really want to put your hope in an access card? Do you really want to put your hope in depending on government to give you your living? Or would you? And then I went into the whole bit that I did downstairs with you folks about why Pennsylvania isn't getting these manufacturers that are coming back to the United States. Or should Pennsylvania be in a place where we can attract those careers to give you an opportunity to sustain for yourself, for your family? And that's where freedom and liberty really lies, is in economic independence, and not being dependent upon the government. Because once you depend upon the government, then the government controls you, plain and simple. So this is what's going to be going on. Those debates, we're going to be going on to see But my thing is about spending, folks. You gotta get the spend under control. And I believe that if we would make Pennsylvania business friendly, the disposable income that would be available with people buying air conditioners and going out to eat and building a new home or buying a new car or whatever would produce a surplus of government revenues rather than what was happening right now with a down economy. So there's two different philosophies. One believes government, big government's the way to go. I believe in limited government. That's where I come from, because I think